Hey everybody, welcome back to the Senators Roundtable. This is the second episode that we're doing, and I'm here with Dayton as usual. And we have a very special guest today in Brent Wallace. How you doing, Brent?
Fantastic, guys. How are you?
Not too bad. It's finally done with the dry season and the off season, so really happy to kind of get
Hmm.
back into the hockey. So, how you doing, Dayton?
Doing pretty good. Yeah. I gotta say, are any of you guys Puckdoku players?
I am. Yeah,
No, I'm not smart enough.
Well, I don't know if I am either, but I play it every day. Today got a 14 for uniqueness.
that's a pretty good score.
So, yeah, pretty good day.
Good stuff. So yeah, first things first. I just wanted to kind of check in with you, Wally. You've been doing the podcast for a little while. How's that going?
Yeah, it's good. Nobody seems to really hate it, so that's good, right? You just want people to watch it and like it and get entertained. So it's been good. I've quite enjoyed it actually. Getting to do long form interviews with players or management or whatever through the hockey world has always been one of my favorite things.
Yeah, I've been I must say today on my TikTok, I was just scrolling through and the little bit that you did on when Ray Emery and Brian McGrattan got in a fight in practice. That showed up on my feed.
Really? Wow.
Yeah. So I was kind of curious about how you're liking that long-term interview. You get some really good guests on and obviously you guys have the connections, but yeah, it's good to see that things are going well.
We've been very fortunate just throughout the years of being able to build those relationships and able to lean on them a bit. So, and for the most part, players that we haven't had a chance to know, whether it's been the last couple of years in the league, they've been very receptive to coming on. So, for the most part, that's been good. It hasn't been an issue of getting them. It's just the issue of scheduling them and making them all fit. Like we had a show. I'm trying to remember what today is on Monday. And 20 minutes before our guest canceled, which has happened a couple of times. So that always throws things for a loop.
Yeah, everybody's got their schedule, especially in the hockey world. You
Yeah.
never know what's going to come up. So, yeah, let's move into some Ottawa Senators news. I just kind of wanted to. The obvious thing is that Michael Andlauer is getting ready to take over the team. He was at the golf tournament today for the Senators, and he even admitted that maybe it's a little bit premature to be there. He hasn't officially taken ownership, but we'll start with you, Brent. What do you think? What's the first order of business for Andlauer?
It'll be to hire Cyril Leader, I think, as CEO. I think that's the foregone conclusion. Now, anything can happen, but I would be shocked if Cyril Leader is not back. And it may be a different name on the title, but he'll be running the show, I would suspect. He's been with Andlauer since day one, since Michael Andlauer wanted to really buy this team. Everybody, by the way, everybody who's wanted to buy the team for the most part, and there's been a number of groups over the years, have always contacted Cyril Leader. One of the first calls they make is to Cyril Leader. And that's one because he's a founder, but he's been involved at every level with that organization, knows it really well, knows the city really well respected. That to me is a super important move to make, is to bring that business community back, is to show that this is going to be a community-based franchise and that they want once again build the relationships that have been damaged over the last several years.
Yeah, there's been a lot of talk about like even with the sale going on, like Snoop Dogg, Ryan Reynolds, and all that. But you're right, like hitting that bang on that the business aspect is a really important part of it, and kind of bringing in somebody like Cyril Leader. Dayton, what's something that you kind of want to see from the new ownership?
Well, I think the most important thing that I'd like to see is him repairing all those relationships that the Melnick organization sort of burnt the bridges to. It's great to see that Daniel Alfredson is connected with the organization again. That's been a long time coming, but like continue to build those relationships, or I guess rebuild those relationships.
Yeah.
I think of someone like Radek Bonk, who just kind of disappeared off the face and was one of the premier stars in the late 90s, early 2000s. I loved him as a kid. He's been completely absent, and maybe that's his choice. That's fair. But to see the outreach from this ownership group to really honor their veterans and their alumni, I think that's really important.
This is an outstanding point, Dayton, and for a couple of reasons. One, you're absolutely right. Radek Bonk is in the city. He's been coaching. We just saw his son get drafted to Philadelphia. But I've been around Radek since he just 1 year, I think, before I got here. One of my favorite people to deal with. He's been very good. We've been able to chat throughout at local hockey rinks when I'd see him when he was coaching and stuff. They did damage the alumni part. They didn't want really much to do with them. They kind of pushed them off to the side. That's changed. And it's changed for a number of reasons. They brought in some really good people. Kent Manderville's one. Laurie Boschman's another guy. They had Brad Marsh there as well. Jason York is now back in. They want to bring these guys in because this is a team that doesn't have a whole lot of history, as we already know. 30 years isn't a long time. And when you look back at probably the last decade, there's been a turnover of players left and right. Like you could, and we're going to do it at some point in our show, is build a team out of guys who have played, I think, 10 games or less. And there's some pretty good players. It might be 20 games. I can't remember. But the point is that there isn't a lot of history. And so I'll do a small humble brag. Tim Studla saw Daniel Alfredson on the first show I launched on our podcast when I did it with Mark Mathot, and said, I really like to meet Daniel Alfredson sometime. I saw him on the show. I don't know much about him. And so that's how they got to actually connect later, was that we got a note to Alfie, like, Tim Stutzer would like to meet you. Because Alfie wasn't around the room. Like, he just wasn't allowed for the most part to be around. And so that's obviously a huge factor as well. He'll come in. He'll now have a significant role in the organization. I think that's important. Like when you go to Detroit, one of my favorite things about teams with history is if you go in that locker room, they have stalls and they're just for the most part empty, but they say like Gordie Howe or Sergei Fedorov or Nick Lidstrom. They just leave those stalls empty, but you remember the history that they have involved. And that's what's key. And so having those guys around, people don't understand the value of having veteran players in the room and how that plays out.
Yeah, and like you said, that history is super important. And Ottawa the Senators organization really needs to embrace that. And maybe they'll have a good opportunity with the construction of the new rink, wherever that is going to be.
Settle down. Hold on a second. We haven't even changed. The ink's not dry on Michael Andlauer's signature on the ownership yet. But I will say it's going to get downtown. And I don't mean to cut you off. I was just trying to be funny. But that's an important part as well. It's way down the road right now. And I will say, Michael Andlauer bought this team. The arena side, he didn't really pay attention to. I didn't really look at it. I'll say it that way. Like, it wasn't that he was ignorant of it. He just wants the hockey team. He really wants this team. He wants it to be successful. He's been a proven winner, and he's been out and he stayed out of the way in the spotlight, which is what you're supposed to do when you want to build a championship team, is you let everybody else do the job. So Michael Andlauer for me was always the first pick. The number one pick for this franchise was to get him involved. But that arena, 5 years, maybe, maybe more. Like there's like they have to get through. And people that aren't familiar with Ottawa, there's another level of government called the National Capital Commission, which is the NCC, which basically owns all the land downtown for the most part. So you have the municipal level, and then you've got provincial, you've got the NCC, and you've got the federal government. Kind of like, that's a lot of red tape to get through. And so that's what's going to take some time, I think, for this franchise to get downtown.
Yeah. And like you said, it's all about the team.
Sorry, I apologize.
No, that's fine. That's fine. Love it. But like you said, it's all about the team. And whatever happens moving forward, great. Let's look at that down the road. But yeah, it's all about now. They're kind of coming out of this rebuild and looking to make some noise on the ice.
They need that. I will say the arena's got to get downtown. And people always say there's no parking. What am I going to do? And the O train doesn't work. Valid. The O train is horrendous. But if you go to a major market, Toronto, Montreal, Vancouver, like, there's very few arenas that are outside the main downtown hub. And people all seem to be able to find a way to get to those arenas. So it'll get downtown at some point. Where, I'm not sure, but it's just not on the priority list right now.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, we'll kind of lean towards what we know is already in the organization right now with DJ Smith and Pierre Dorion. They've done a lot of work over the past 4, 5, 6 years, just kind of on their own and together, really. Pierre Dorion has built quite a team for the next few years, at least. Obviously, Tarasenko is only on the 1 year. Shane Pinto's not signed yet. But like all key players locked up long term. Have they done a good enough job, do you think, Dayton?
I think they've done a good enough job. Yeah, I think this is a team that is primed to compete for a playoff spot. I think, Dorion Smith are the guys to get them there. They've shown that once they've been given some freedom in the hockey realm, they can do their jobs really well. Granted, I think this is their last chance to show that they can get it done. If this is another non-playoff team, I think new ownership kind of comes in and says, hey, we need a new change. Change of scenery. So if they don't make it after this year, I think it's a pretty short leash. But for now, I think, yeah.
You think they both make it through this season?
That's my opinion. Yeah, I think they've kind of been. Let me start again. I think Smith is Dorion's guy. I think Dorion is pretty established there. I don't foresee Andlauer getting rid of a GM right away. But if this is not a playoff team next season, I see him gone.
Okay, so let me put it to you this way. But wait, let's preface. I just want to go back. What's your level of have they done enough job? Have they done a good enough job? What are you quantifying that with?
So has Pierre Dorion to this point done a good enough job on the rebuild and built the team ready to move forward? And has DJ Smith, up to this point, I would say it hasn't been a playoff caliber team that's been on the ice for him, but has he developed this team into a playoff team and done what he needed to do?
All right. So let me start with management because it's the bigger one. If you were to buy your local, I don't know, supermarket, do you not want to put your people in place that you trust to run your multi-million-dollar supermarket? Dayton?
Oh, for sure. But I think Dorion has shown that he can be trusted to do that.
No. So I need to be careful with what I say, but I will tell you, Pierre Dorion's not the guy to lead this team forward. And furthermore, I'm not sure he makes it 3 months into this season, but we'll see. So if everything falls into place, like I suspect it will, I could be wrong. And let's call it 50-50. Cyril Litter becomes the CEO. Peter Chiarelli becomes the head of hockey ops, maybe VP, whatever. Steve Staios comes in as the GM or someone above Pierre Dorion. And I think that's where the move gets made. I think Michael Andlauer wants to come in and look like and he's not a guy that rushes anything. I get that. So he's going to hire people. He's going to let them make the decisions, and how quick those decisions take will be up to those people. But he doesn't want to come in right away and start making sudden changes. He wants people to come in that he trusts to make those decisions. Don't forget, all these guys that have wanted to buy this franchise, whether it's Astapopoulos or, and I may have said that name wrong, whether it's Nico Sparks, whatever, have all had advisors. So they've already had guys in mind that they were like, if I get a franchise, this is who I want. This is who I want. This is what I want. So I think it would be a far cry. I would be shocked if Pierre Dorion survives the season.
Yeah, and I'm right there with you, Wally. I think December 1st is going to be the telling because obviously the Senators have not done very well in November for the past 2 years. I'm pretty sure they have 5 wins in 26 games over the past 2 Novembers, which is abysmal. And so if they can make it to December 1st, there's a good chance they make it through the season. But like you said, like if there's any hint of these guys aren't doing what I want them to do, they will be replaced. And I really like what you said about Staios too, because he was in Edmonton, he was the special advisor to the GM. He's not taking a parallel move over to be an assistant GM.
Nope. And for Steve Staios, they wanted him to stay in Edmonton a lot. But when Jeff Jackson came in, who is Connor McDavid's agent, but also Tim Stützle's agent, for those who don't know, they wanted him to stay, but Ken Holland wasn't leaving. So basically, new guy comes in, he's got to make some moves to put his people in place. And so Steve, I'm not sure how it all played out, but Steve has left the Edmonton Oilers organization. I believe it's on his own accord. So he's not leaving if there's not something else for him to go to, is what I'm led to believe. And he's highly regarded as one of the bright minds that's not in a GM role. So I just have a hard time thinking that Pierre Dorion is going to survive this and be the guy to lead this team forward. And listen, he is not very well liked in that organization, and I will stand on that as a hill to die on. So I don't foresee him being able to stay if they start doing interviews and asking people questions.
Cool.
Yeah, fair enough.
Dayton, anything you want to add?
I'm a little out of my comfort zone being accused of being too optimistic. I'm usually the guy.
No. Well, you can be optimistic on a guy that's in charge, because it rarely do you keep the same people in place, especially for a team that's missed the playoffs for 6 straight years.
Yeah.
For DJ Smith, your December 1st is obviously bang on. Listen, look at the teams that have been in the playoffs after American Thanksgiving who have not been in the playoffs once the playoffs started. So it's always that American Thanksgiving, which is the end of November, right? So basically the same time frame. That's huge. Can DJ survive it? Maybe. But here, the problem is, if you keep saying, well, we'll give them one more year, then you've lost another year of Thomas Chabot, another year of Brady Tkachuk and Tim Stützle. So at what point do you go, it's now? We've got maybe 3 years here to try and build this into a cup contender, and then we have no idea what's going to happen afterwards. There's no more patience left in hockey. That's why we rush everybody into the NHL at 18, because we want the next great thing to be in the National Hockey League and be winning immediately. So that's where the issue is going to be. 3 years is not a long time. So you got to get your guys in place if that's what you want.
Yeah, absolutely. Couldn't have said it better. So real quick, we're just going to have a quick message from the Hockey Writers.
Interested in writing for the Hockey Writers? If you have experience writing about hockey, are passionate about the sport, and are looking to take your writing to the next level, the Hockey Writers could be the place for you. Here at THW, you will have the opportunity to hone your craft at one of the world's largest and most respected hockey publishers. You will have control over what you write, be able to seek out media credentials, and be supported by a large network of writers and editors. Plus, you'll get paid for doing it. If you're interested and want to know more about team openings and requirements, please visit the Write for THW page on the Hockey Writers website. A link to that page is also listed in the description.
Welcome back, everybody. So we talked about DJ Smith, Pierre Dorion, everybody above the on-ice product. But now let's kind of dip into what is going to happen on the ice. And first up is Shane Pinto. Now, there's been a lot of speculation that the deal is almost done. Elliot Friedman and Bruce Garriock have both reported that it's getting pretty close. I think his agent was talking to Elliot Friedman, and that's what he reported. There was also some rumors about him getting dealt, and Philadelphia is very interested. I don't imagine that he's getting dealt. Ottawa doesn't want him to go. He doesn't want to go. Where do you think they're at with the deal right now, Brent?
Well, I know they've really tried hard to try and bridge the gap. It was a mammoth gap at the beginning, as they always are. But Pinto doesn't have any leverage, and that's the issue. The only leverage he has is to really just not sign it, because he can't be offer sheeted. The cap is a tough issue. So ownership, and I know, same with Igor Sokolov, if I'm not mistaken, they've been waiting kind of for the ownership to come in and take over to see if that would change or make help negotiations get kickstarted. But I will say that organization, in the new ownership group at least, really high on Shane Pinto. They might not want me to admit that because it doesn't help with negotiations, but they really, really like him. I don't know what it would take, but it would take something for them to want to move Shane Pinto. I can't see it happening. And the whole Scott Laughton thing, there's 99% chance that that's not happening.
Yeah, that's fair. Dayton, what do you think? Do you think he gets ready to go before training camp?
Well, I remember last episode of this podcast, I was throwing out my tinfoil hat theories. I thought that he was on the move. This was going on too long. I'm less of that opinion now. I think there's a good chance he stays. I think there's also some chance that if this starts to drag on, he's like, why keep a kid around that doesn't want to sign?
Whoa, hold on a second, Dayton. Hold on a second. That he doesn't want to sign, or that he doesn't want to sign the deal that's in front of him?
Yes. Yeah. The latter.
Okay. So if someone offered you, I don't know, a 10% raise, but you knew you could get a 70% raise or whatever, are you going to go, you know what? I'm going to take it and just be happy because the other guy who's playing on the same line as me is making more money, who's doing less. This is a business, right? So don't put this on Shane Pinto. When did Brady Tkachuk sign? They were playing a game when he walked into the building.
Yeah.
Right. So this isn't uncommon to see RFAs, especially in their out of their first contracts, to this kind of negotiation to take place, because it forces both sides to really get together and hammer out a deal, because they don't want to not have Shane Pinto on opening night, and Shane Pinto doesn't want to not be there on opening night. So they'll hammer it out. It's going to take through camp, obviously, because camp starts tomorrow. I suspect it by next week they'll probably have it done.
Good.
Okay.
He's really important to the team. Like, it's people look at a third line center and they're just like, oh, it's a third line center, they're replaceable. But he's 22.
No,
came off a 20-goal season. He's not replaceable.
Here's the problem people don't understand. You can't win in the National Hockey League, or at least a championship, without deep at center. You need to be deep at center and really good on defensively. So Sidney Crosby, Evgeny Malkin, Jordan Stahl was their third line center. You've got to be deep at the center position, and they've got that right now if they keep the three of them together in Stützle, Norris, and Pinto. I really, really like Shane Pinto. I think he's an extremely smart player. He's perfect for that spot. If anything happens and one of the two gets hurt in front of him, he can play top 2 minutes. He is a, you know what? He's more important to this organization than people realize.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. I love him on the team. I was just trying to figure out how long organization would wait to sign someone like that. Because in the end, he is a third line center, right? So he can't be commanding a whole bunch of money based on how the team is made up.
See, I disagree with you. Only because it's more fun that way. But he can demand it because he's proven he should get it. His numbers are strong. Like, for them to go, well, we think he's 185. He's more of a $3 million player. So they're going to settle somewhere probably a little south of 2.5. I think he should be at 2.5 easily, but they've got some cap issues because your general manager that you really think is going to survive this year has made some poor decisions.
Oh, no doubt. There's some mistakes.
So, Wally, what do you think that they do to get out of that cap situation? You think
this is the problem. So you can say, oh, just trade Matthew Joseph. Yeah. Now that's great on paper, but someone's going to want it. Someone's not going to take him to let Pierre Dorion off the hook. So now you got to sweeten it. So what do you sweeten it with? Is it a second round pick? At what point do you not make that deal? But you've got to figure it out. If you put him on waivers, I guess maybe, but you're still not going to recapture all of that if you have to send him to Belleville. So and Matthew Joseph, like, if they could keep that line together with Matthew Joseph as a third line winger, fantastic, but it's just not going to happen. I don't know what Eric Brandstrom may figure into this, or JBD if they need to move somebody. I don't think it's Tyler Clevin. And they don't really want to move any D if they can help it. So they're going to have to figure out, it's probably a draft pick, maybe a prospect, and a Matthew Joseph to try and solve this issue.
Yeah, it's a weird place to be in, looking at the Ottawa Senators and how they're going to get out of their cap situation. And I mean, there's a little bit of a positive there. They're finally spending, but now it's coming at a detriment to signing your awesome third line center. Yeah,
and the only other thing to that is, I thought that the deal, and I really still think they want to get a deal done before they try and sign Pinto, because if you don't, then you've got the problem of everybody knows that this is a problem with Matthew Joe or whatever, a cap situation that you've got to now, you have no choice but to make moves. And then it's costing you more and more as long as the later it goes. So they can be over the cap until the official rosters are submitted the night before day one of the season, but they've got some work to do. They've got to try and figure this out.
Yeah. I did see one thing going around on Twitter today, and Twitter, you know exactly what it's like.
It's all true. It's all true.
Yeah, everything is true on there. But somebody mentioned, and I don't remember who it was, or I would give them a shout out, kind of like a Connor Brown deal. He's making $800K and has $3.5 million in signing bonuses that will probably cost them overages next year. But with the money going up, the salary cap going up, is that even a possibility right now?
Yeah. The Sens are not big signing bonus team. They just don't want to do it if they can
Yeah.
avoid it. And that's been instituted through the Melnyk years. It's a good question. I don't. Yeah, I mean, maybe they're going to have to get creative, however they structure a deal or however they try to make this fit. But Shane Pinto needs to be in the lineup. He's going to be at some point. They just got to figure out how to move everybody else around out if they have to.
Yeah. So last week we talked a whole lot about what the roster looks like, so we're not going to get too deep into that for this week. But we just finished up the rookie tournament. I don't know how much of that either of you watched really, but obviously Taryn Fizer, the standout of the tournament, he got invited to training camp. Was there anybody else that surprised you, whether it be already drafted or somebody that was just an invited player?
So one of the guys that I like to keep an eye on, I know him as a kid, but he's been I'm pretty sure he's invited to main camp, is Connor Clattenburg. Undrafted, Sault Ste. Marie, if I'm not mistaken. He is hard as nails. He will fight anybody. If he said, "I need you to fight Zdeno Chara," I'd be like, okay. I like his style. I think it fits well with a team that could use a little more sandpaper in its bottom grouping. I mean, he's not going to make the roster. Don't get me wrong, but he's a guy I just want to see down the road of where he is. Taryn Fizer, like another one. He may earn a Belleville contract, which is probably where he's, but we're not. I'm shocked if we see him in the National Hockey League anytime soon.
Yeah, and just adding that organizational depth gives some of the prospects but maybe better players to play with. I'd have to look at the Belleville depth charts to kind of see.
But we get all excited. Here's my Debbie Downer moment. We get all excited about these prospects who score 4 goals in a rookie tournament, and never hear from them again. And I wish I could remember the name off the top of my head, so I apologize. He was the OHL's leading scorer for like 2 straight years, and he got signed by Ottawa. He got signed by Belleville. God, I can't think of off the top of my head. He played 1 game or 2 games with Ottawa, if I'm not mistaken, then we never heard from him again. Like, there are some guys that have a lot of talent that just can't put it all together. And I don't know this about Terry. I've never met him. And I hope he does well, but we see this all the time with standouts at this level and then never see them again, if you will. And it's a cold, hard reality. By the way, there's just no spots. That's the other issue. Like, if you're undrafted and you're on the bubble, you're not going to be looked at ahead of a drafted kid like Ridley Gregg or whatever, because those guys are the ones the scouts and the GMs have stuck their neck out for.
Yeah, and he's already 22. He had a good season in the ECHL, but might be a good bottom 6 guy in Belleville.
50 points, I think, in the ECHL, somewhere in there. But yeah, like, you know what? This is a huge moment for him, and I think I'd be excited if he were to make it to Belleville, because he just took a flyer and came to a rookie tournament and made something of himself. Like, there's a ton of great hockey players that never play in the National Hockey League. That's a given. So if he can turn this into a pro deal and play another higher level, I'm all for it.
Yeah. Dayton, anybody kind of impress you over the last week?
Well, I will admit I didn't get to catch any of the games live. I read a little bit about the tournament. That's the joys of being based out west. So I really like what they have. Levi Marilainen. So I think he did really well. I think he's set up to be a competitor for one of the top spots in Belleville, potentially usurping Mandalese. And I don't know if he can usurp Sogard yet, but I think they're a lot closer than it looks.
Yeah, I think they'll be a really good tandem in Belleville. Obviously, Miralainen, and like you said, Brent, it's just a rookie camp. It's not super high quality. Like, it's not an NHL game. But he looked really good against Montreal. Ottawa didn't draft very many draftees at all, ice very many draftees at all. Yep. And he looked great against Montreal. He looked great in Finland last year. He had incredible numbers. So yeah, I do think that him and Sogard are going to make a fantastic tandem in Belleville.
And Marilainen has been in Ottawa a lot this summer, trained a lot. So I know, like, it's more and more every year where all these guys are kind of staying around. Igor Sokolov here all year. Jake Sanderson was back skating in June on the ice, I think with Shelly Kettles or with some of the staff. They're all itching to get better, to try and push. They know there's not a lot of spots. They know they got to fight and claw. So they're excited to see where they can get to if they can crack this lineup, because they're excited to play in it if they can make the roster.
Perfect. So Brent, in our first episode, we did a little segment at the end, over under rapid fire. So I've got a few lines here that I set for you. And Dayton, I'm going to get your answers to, of course. But they just need to be.
There's a lot to be off the top of my head. All right, ready.
So yeah, just a quick over or under and maybe a sentence or two of your explanation. So assuming 82 games, Shane Pinto over under 39.5 points.
Dayton, do you go first or is it me?
I'll go first.
Dayton,
sure.
go ahead.
I think over. 20 goals, 15 assists is a great start. If he's given his 82 games a more prominent role, bigger contract, yeah, he can cross that 40-point threshold. I think no problem.
I'll say under. And the reason is because he's not going to be a top 2 center. So if you can have your third line center scoring 40 points and 20 goals, you're having a great season. He's going to see less ice time because that top 6 isn't going to give up very much on the on the power play or 5-on-5. So he's going to scratch and claw for penalty kill minutes, the third power play unit, maybe. I will say under, but that doesn't devalue. I think he will be a more important, bigger part of the success of this franchise.
Yeah, I also have the under on that, but like right around the 35, 37 points. But developing better as a player, defensively, and doing that as just the third line center. So
it's a great question though. Like he's capable of it. That's the problem. I'm like, well, yeah, I don't know. Maybe he does. Maybe somebody gets hurt.
Yeah. If he's in Norris's spot for over 30 games, he's definitely hitting the over. But if he's playing 82 games as third line center, just barely the under.
Yeah, I'll stick with the under, but man, okay. That one bugs me. Yeah.
Okay, next up, we'll start with you, Brent, on this one. Ottawa Senators over or under 1.5 NHL contracts given between now and opening night. So Shane Pinto's going to be one. Are they going to sign Josh Bailey or anybody else?
For Igor Sokolov? Because I'll take the over.
No, not Igor Sokolov. I did write this line before Sokolov was signed, but no.
Josh Bailey. I don't know if he gets a deal. So okay, right now we can't sign Shane Pinto because we're basically over the cap, and now we want to add another contract.
Are they going to make it work somehow? Because if the way the money works right now, if they trade Joseph in a second round pick or whatever they do to clear out some money, I think the money will add up that they could sign Pinto at 2.5 and then a league min deal.
Okay, so but you've got to have some flexibility,
right?
Like, and then okay, so you sign him. Someone like they're not going to keep everybody around,
right?
Are we moving Parker Kelly? Zach McEwen just signed a multi-year deal. He's not going anywhere. Mark Kastelik is their. I'd be shocked if he's not their fourth line center for the season. So Shane Pinto. So I need just one more contract or not? Okay.
Essentially, is Josh Bailey going to sign an NHL deal?
I'd like him to sign. I really would. I don't know. I just don't like the roster makeup of forcing in another guy. But I think, all right, I'm going to go with over. I think they'll sign him, but they've got to move some. They've got to have to move Parker Kelly. If that's what they want to do, I don't know. Or they're going to try and put him through and send him down. I don't know if he makes it through waivers. He might.
Yeah. Good. Dayton?
Yeah, I'll agree. Over. I think Bailey does get a contract. I think they're missing that Derek Brassard type of guy in the bottom of their lineup. Bailey is that, but better.
Why do they need a guy in the bottom part of the lineup to be a veteran guy like that?
I don't know why, but I know that it worked really well last year. I saw Brassard.
Well, Derek Brassard is not, but he's a bona fide offensive scorer.
Yeah.
Like, Josh Bailey's not coming here to put up any numbers whatsoever.
That's fair.
So I'm just, if you've got Claude Giroux, a Brady Tkachuk, you've got Travis Hamonic and Thomas Chabot going into his ninth NHL season. Like, at what point do we say, you know what? Maybe there doesn't need to be Jacob Chikrin's another guy, although young, another veteran voice. We've got enough guys in this room. Like, and I don't mean it anything against you. I'm just curious, do they need someone in the bottom six to be a veteran presence? Does Zach McEwen count as a guy that's 27 years old, but he's only played 3 NHL seasons type thing?
I don't think that's enough. I think he was a downgrade on Austin Watson. That's a character guy who came into the dressing room. And,
yeah,
I don't disagree at all. I would have kept Austin Watson.
Yeah,
in a heartbeat, but we didn't make that decision. So, I'm just curious of what they need on the bottom six in that veteran presence that they like. Why do they need it?
I think it's a really young group.
I'm not saying you're wrong.
Yeah, I think it's because they are such a young group, right?
Yeah.
Having a guy who knows his way around the league, like Bailey, like Brassard last year, like Watson, that gives your team just that little bit of extra drive, a little extra push, a little extra knowledge, and every little bit helps trying to get to the playoffs. And that's what they need. That is the ultimate goal this year. I think
if they need sorry, go ahead, Dayton. I didn't mean to cut you
off. I was just going to say, I know adding him would push out Greg, which is not ideal. Greg is probably the better option, but he's also a rookie.
Yep.
Does he get them there as a first-year player? I don't know.
Listen,
really, I think I'm more confident.
Ridley Gregg playing this year or not isn't going to make it a playoff team or not. I with all due respect to Ridley Gregg, I'm not sure that he's that impactful yet. I like Josh Bailey, and I know he brings it a lot of leadership. He's worn letters with the Islanders, but I don't like. What can he do that Claude Giroux can't do?
Yeah,
but
I don't mind him.
Maybe he needs to bring a winger on the fourth line to yell at guys who are playing on the fourth line because they don't see Claude Giroux the same way. Maybe you might be right.
Yeah, and I think it's really tough because I don't think Josh Bailey wants to sign to be the 13th forward, but having him around the team would be valuable regardless. But where's the room for him is what we keep coming back to. I agree.
I disagree with your 13th forward. I think if you are at that stage where you're at a PTO and you just want to hang on, you will take being a 13th forward in a heartbeat. Same with Derek. Derek Brassard did the same thing.
Yeah.
The one thing is I've been able to talk to many players post-career, and they're like, man, I would do anything for the most part to hang around. Not necessarily to play, mind you. They just want to be around, be in the room, because that's what they end up missing the most. And so they're okay with the wear and tear. Josh Bailey's played 1,057 NHL games, I think it is. That's a lot of miles. He will gladly take nights off if he's signed.
Good. So the last one that we're gonna do here. So the Ottawa Senators top six. So Brady Tkachuk, Tim Stützle, Vlad Tarasenko, Claude Giroux, Josh Norris, and Drake Batherson. That's the projected top six. Might balance some lines, whatever. But that group of six, over or under 180.5 goals. So averaging 30 goals each. We'll start with you, Dayton.
Yeah.
I'm going to go with under for the main reason that I think the scoring is going to be spread out a little bit more this year. Last year, you had the top six carrying the entire scoring for the most part. That's unsustainable, and that doesn't make a playoff team. If you can spread out that scoring, you can get more guys hitting that 20-goal mark. That's a better team. And so you bring back Pinto, and he should get another 20. You get guys like Kubalik, he should get 20, and that starts taking some responsibility off the top guys, and you can start spreading around that offensive power, and hopefully you get more goals total, just less from the top.
Okay, Dayton, I have a question for you.
You bet.
If Kubalik and Shane Pinto get 20 goals each, out of your top 6, how many guys are getting 20 goals?
Of the top 6 getting 20?
Yeah.
I could see 4 or 5 getting 20.
So you're thinking there's going to be 6 to 7 players on the Sens with 20 goals this season?
Yeah.
That's tough. Like, it just doesn't happen. But
not a lot, but the top teams get there.
I'm trying to think right now. How many teams last year had 20 goal scorers? I feel like 1, Colorado, maybe. I wish I'd have done some actual work. I apologize.
I did look that up one time. I thought it was more than that, but
that's a huge number. But maybe, like, I think the most Ottawa's ever had is 6 20 goal scorers in a season. So back to your original question of 180 or 185 goals. I don't see it. I don't think they all can get. So if Pinto got 40, or sorry, Stützle got 40. Let's say Brady got 30. So we're at 70. I'm going to give Norris 30. We're at 100. Tarasenko.
He's the wild card here.
27. Although he's motivated as hell. That's the issue. So if Batherson is 20 or no, under. I just don't think they can all score at that kind of clip.
Yeah. I do think that, like you said, Tim Stützle can hit 40 again. Josh Norris can hit 30. Brady can hit 30. I think Claude Giroux, obviously, he's not going to set a career high again. I expect him to be closer to 28, 27. And like Batherson and Tarasenko probably combined for 45 or so. That'd be my guess. So I'm going to hit the under on that as well.
It's interesting. It's interesting to try and project, because by the end of the year, we'll be so far off. It'll be like, what were we thinking? But it's like they have the ability. That's the interesting part. They all have all those guys can score 30 goals.
Yeah.
Easily. But can they all move the puck around, distribute it enough where they all get there? I don't think they can. And I'm hoping, here's my one caveat. I hope they actually play a little defense where they're not scoring as many goals, but they're allowing a whole lot less. Because you're not going to win unless you can stop the puck.
That's fair.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much for coming on, Brent. This has been fun. Really appreciate your time. And Dayton, of course, appreciate your time as well. So thank you, everybody, for tuning into this episode of the Senators Roundtable. Make sure to like, subscribe, and check out the Substack that we have released. Leave your thoughts on all of our over-underlines and leave some for next week. And we'll see you then.